So Nick Diaz expressed an interest in returning to the UFC in the early part of 2021, and I thought we'd talk about that in this video today because it spurred a whole question about who he's going to be fighting when he does return. I can't wait to see Nick Diaz back in the octagon if he is going to be back in the octagon. I could go through and rant for about 10 minutes on maybe why it won't happen and maybe why it would happen, but I'm just going to go off the assumption that we are going to see Nick Diaz in the early part of 2021 because it's more fun to just assume that he is going to get back in there. And I really want to mention as well, he did say that he is going to be returning in the early part of 2021. He could have said nothing about when he was returning. He could have said that he was going to be returning at the end of the year in 2020, perhaps maybe in 8 weeks time. Now that he's done a practice cut, he wants to start a camp. He wants to return early 2021. You know who else is in the works for a fight in the early part of 2021? Nate Diaz facing Jorge Masvidal on a pay-per-view in January. This is why I kind of believe Nick Diaz is probably going to be making a comeback, because if he was going to, what better way to come back than as the co-main event to a Nate Diaz card, because now Nate Diaz is the real older brother when you think about things in terms of big pay-per-view star. Nate Diaz is the man, and I feel like Nick Diaz, if he wanted to come back, what better place than in the co-main event of Nate versus Jorge 2 with a rematch of his own potentially, or against a big name high up the rankings in the welterweight division. Who knows? This is what we want to talk about today. Who is Nick Diaz going to be returning against? I can't wait to see if he returns. I really want to see Nick Diaz back in there because it would just be such a... He would look like... I don't know, I almost expect to see him on old graphics. Is that weird? I almost expect to see Nick Diaz on old quality, like in an old quality visual in the cage. Like I almost don't even expect to see Nick Diaz in the cage in HD, but he's going to be. You know how weird that's going to look? Nick Diaz in HD? I mean, I'm looking forward to it, okay? I really am. Nick Diaz, I feel like his opponent should probably be Robbie Lawler in a rematch, Dan Hardy in a comeback fight for the pair of them, Carlos Condit in a rematch if Condit beats Court McGee coming up in a few weeks, Anderson Silva in a rematch, or a first fight, because the last one was deemed a no contest all the way back when, in the last fight of Nick Diaz's career to the date. That would be an interesting rematch, and if Anderson Silva does get past Uriah Hall, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but listen, it could happen, and Anderson Silva's going to be looking for one more fight before his retirement, I'm apparently hearing. Anderson Silva's looking for retirement soon. What better way to retire Anderson Silva than running back the super fight that got overturned to a no contest against Nick Diaz for old time's sake in a fight that Anderson Silva could potentially win? I think a lot of people are looking at Nick Diaz right now as a great matchup for them, a lot of these older veterans. But I do want to say this. The people bringing up the names of the winner of Covington Woodley, I know why they're bringing up those names, because Nick Diaz did say in his tweet, I believe, or no, in Ariel Helwani's tweet, he said that Nick Diaz had told him that he's going to be paying extra close attention to the upcoming welterweight matchups in the UFC. Covington versus Woodley's in a couple of weeks. You know what else is in a couple of weeks? On the same card as Covington versus Woodley at welterweight, Donald Cerrone versus Nico Price. What if Donald Cerrone beats Nico Price? Donald Cerrone versus Nick Diaz, maybe? After Donald Cerrone lost to Nate Diaz? He has a bit of back and forth with the Diaz brothers. That would be a huge fight. I'm not want to talk about Tyron Woodley, Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns if he loses to Usman. I don't want to talk about any of those names. Masvidal. I don't want to talk about any of them. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Nick Diaz. Darren Till versus Nick Diaz. He can stay out of it. You've got Jack Hermansson to get through. Please focus on Jack Hermansson for the love of God, because it's a nightmare matchup, Darren Till. But back to Nick Diaz. I feel like I'm not ready to see him jump up, but if he was going to, I would love to do it for Leon Edwards, because I feel like giving Leon Edwards a big name fight at this point would just cheer him up so much. I feel bad for Leon Edwards at times. I know he says he wants to fight again in 2021, which is probably going to put him at a bad schedule if he does want that Nick Diaz matchup at the start of early 2021. Or sorry, Leon Edwards says he wants to fight in 2020 still, so he's going to be making a fight real soon, I assume with Wonderboy Thompson. I hope with Wonderboy Thompson. But if we were going to give this to anyone, give Leon Edwards a break, because I tell you what beating Nick Diaz does, it gets Nate Diaz interested in you. That would be huge for anyone in that division, because not only do you get Nick Diaz, the big name fight that you're looking for that's going to put you on a platform above the other contenders that you're trying to compete against in your rise above the rankings, you're then going to get eyes from Nate Diaz, who's a bigger name than Nick Diaz, because I can't think of anyone. Listen, Nate Diaz doesn't want to fight many people. He doesn't want to fight many people. It's hard to get Nate Diaz to the table when it comes to a fight. He's got to have some kind of interest. I can't imagine what would fire up Nate Diaz for a fight more than watching someone beat up his older brother and then probably wanting to fight that person who beat up his older brother. There's big stakes on the line. Nick Diaz is a big name and a big opportunity for a bunch of contenders, but I feel like the UFC should do the right thing. We've got a bunch of guys at the bottom of the welterweight rankings right now that could very much do with that fight. I don't want to see him chucked straight to the top. I want to see him get a fight in the top 15. A winnable fight as well, because listen, I don't mind Nick Diaz's chances in a rematch against Robbie Lawler. He beat him the first time by KO. I don't mind his chances there. I mean, Robbie Lawler does not look the same anymore whatsoever after that Neil Magny performance. He looks spent. So if Robbie Lawler wants to stay active and beat a big name in a comeback and get his name back up there in talks to jump up the rankings again or fight another big name himself and extend his career, Robbie Lawler will be looking for that opponent. Robbie Lawler, another ranked person in the welterweight division, goes by the name of Anthony Pettis, right now at number 14, above Robbie Lawler, has history with a fight with Nate Diaz, you know? Recently as well for Anthony Pettis. Now he can take on Nick Diaz. That would be a great matchup to make at 170. Speaking of Anthony Pettis, I know he wanted to take on Dan Hardy. Dan Hardy would be a good matchup and very winnable for Nick Diaz. I think what Nick Diaz should do, calm down. I know they're going to be offering you top guys because listen, Tyron Woodley a while ago was talking about a Nick Diaz fight and they were talking about that fight potentially happening. And then Tyron Woodley lost his belt and lost 10 rounds in a row, and all of a sudden we're in a different situation. But if he goes out there and catches Colby Covington with a big punch in one of the first 2 rounds and gets him out of there and calls out Nick Diaz, I could see why Nick Diaz would rather risk a loss against a guy who's going to probably get him a title shot compared to risking a loss against a guy who's probably going to get him ranked. Those are 2 different outcomes for risking a fight loss. I think Nick Diaz should take the earlier risk because I genuinely think, not joking, if Nick Diaz has been training this whole time, which I assume he is, otherwise I don't think he'd really be thinking about a comeback because he always stays in good shape anyway. That's the thing with the Diaz brothers. But if he does want to come back, Robbie Lawler rematch, main event of a fight night, Robbie Lawler rematch, co-main event or feature fight of Diaz versus Masvidal 2. Or Masvidal versus Diaz 2, sorry. Masvidal fans will hate that I put Diaz's name first there, sorry. Masvidal beat him the first time, so Masvidal versus Diaz 2. But still, Anthony Pettis on that same card on the feature fight. There are so many good names to go round. I mean, I wouldn't even mind. I know they're trying to book Khamzat versus Damian Maia if Khamzat does get past Gerald Meerschaert, which I'm guessing they think is likely to happen. But Damian Maia is another great matchup, maybe just for fun. Who knows? It's Damian Maia's retirement bout, but one thing I would not sleep on is if Anderson Silva does beat Uriah Hall, I can't see Anderson Silva looking to grind up the rankings or take on the next up-and-comer that's going to get their name off of beating him again. If he beats Uriah Hall, he's either going to retire or fight one more time and retire, I would imagine. Nick Diaz rematch or first fight, because the first one was a no contest, sounds amazing to me. Really good. I'm assuming he's coming back at 170 though, because that's what he's talking about. But listen, if Colby wins, Colby's called out the Diaz brothers again. So it's all going to be what happens on the microphones over the next few weeks. That's going to be the whole decider over who gets to fight with Nick Diaz. Because if no one calls him out, he's getting Robbie Lawler or Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis is probably going to call him out. I don't know if he has yet, but he probably will be doing so in the next few days. But he's ranked at welterweight, 14. You know? But I'm going to guess this is all going to be down to what do we see on the microphones over the next few weeks? Does Covington call him out? Does Woodley call him out? These are big things that happen. If Covington wins, I assume he's going to be looking for a rematch with Usman. That would make sense. He had the closest fight with Usman. He arguably could have been beating Usman before the end. I mean, one judge had him beating Usman before the end, so that would make some level of sense if you were going to give a title shot to anyone after Covington gets past Woodley, if he does. But if Woodley gets past Covington, Woodley ain't going to be getting a title shot, and I doubt Woodley's going to want to take on Leon Edwards over a Nick Diaz fight for his next title eliminator. I'm just saying. There's a lot of fun to be had. I just don't want to chuck him in there against these savages at the top straight away. Let's see if Nick Diaz has still got it. Let's see if he's still got it against one of the older guys that seems to be losing a little bit of a step. And if he's better than them, then I want to see him jump straight up those rankings into the top 5 for the big money fights. And listen, maybe even McGregor turns around a little bit and pays attention to Nick Diaz coming back. Because I tell you this, if McGregor wanted to entice Nate into a trilogy and you wanted to build a Nate and McGregor trilogy, right now stock is low and demand is low for a McGregor versus Nate Diaz trilogy. McGregor goes out there and KOs Nick Diaz, let's say, I'm not saying that's going to happen because Nick Diaz has got an iron chin, but he is an older guy. If McGregor goes out there and beats Nick Diaz, all of a sudden the Nate versus McGregor trilogy is a huge deal again. But we'll see what goes on. I can't wait. Put him on the same card as Masvidal versus Diaz 2. Make a bunch of money off of his name because Nick Diaz is coming back. I've been waiting for this for so long. I wish it would have happened sooner. I don't even know how old he is, but I want to say he's 37. Yes, he is 37. There you go, 37. I mean, it is a... I mean, listen, Woodley's getting up to that kind of age. I think Woodley might be older than that, to be honest with you. Woodley's... Listen, some of these welterweights... They're getting up there. Nick Diaz going against one of those younger guys. Even a Carlos Condit rematch would be amazing. I think that would be a great idea. You know, a Mike Perry? Oh my god. I don't know why I said that French sounding. Mike Perry. But Mike Perry, dude. Mike Perry is the answer to everything. If you can't think of a name, Mike Perry's the name. That's the name. If you're deciding between multiple names, Mike Perry's the name. That's the name. I don't even give a fuck about Mikel Pereira versus Mike Perry anymore. What about Mike Perry? Mike Perry versus Nick Diaz. It would just be amazing. I love it. I love it. And it always seems to happen. I said this before. Remember when I made a video about Brock Lesnar coming back last weekend? Or a few days ago, I believe it was Thursday or Friday of last week. I made a video saying Brock Lesnar was coming back, which is what all the MMA world was talking about. And I also said in that video that every single time there's a terrible, terrible fight night card, all of a sudden someone's coming back and there's everything to talk about. These fighters do these announcements, and I hope we have not been baited by Nick Diaz into talking about him again. I hope he's really serious about doing it this time. I really do. And I've made this video off the assumption that he probably is going to be coming back because I don't see why he would tease it this much unless he was going for a midlife He is going for a midlife. I don't even know. I'm not even going to get into it, but still. I can't wait. It's going to be good times. Nick Diaz is coming back. But I said this. Every time there's a terrible fight card on the weekend, all of a sudden there's big news. You know? Oh, sorry, last weekend's card was terrible and had no names on it pretty much whatsoever. What do you know? Brock Lesnar is returning to MMA. He's just got made a free agent now. But he's returning to UFC. Let's talk about it. I don't get it. All of a sudden this weekend, Michelle Waterson versus Angela Hill's a main event. And there's no co-main yet. There isn't actually an announced co-main event yet. Nick Diaz returns. You know, like, I wonder if McGregor will punch an old man next weekend after fucking that fight gets rescheduled or something. Maybe Covington Usman or Covington versus Woodley gets cancelled and McGregor goes on a rampage in a pensioner's home. Who knows? I like the news though. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Nick Diaz, I hope he's back, man. I really do hope he's back. And I hope he's healthy as well. And I hope he wins. So give him someone he can beat, please. And someone he can actually have a good chance against. Robbie Lawler, Anthony Pettis, Dan Hardy, Carlos Condit if he beats Court McGee. Then we'll jump him to the Leon Edwards, to the Woodleys, to the Covingtons, to the Usman Burns losers, to the Masvidal Nate winner if it's Masvidal and Masvidal wants to take another one of the Diaz brothers. Who knows? I have no idea, but it's going to be a fun time. I'm looking forward to the early part of 2021. Kick the year off with a bang. Thank you for watching. Click that button there. Goodbye. See you later.